Hi, I hope you're doing well today. We're going to spend a little time talking about things that can interfere with the airflow. There are several mechanisms that our body automatically uses in order to control the air. And of course, we're trying to flow the air and produce sound. And so when we're putting on the brakes and stepping on the gas at the same time, this makes things really complicated. And we want them to be simpler. So when we encounter resistance, of course, we're going to step on the gas a little bit and meet that resistance. But if we step on the gas a little too much, then what happens is our body automatically makes an adjustment to bring things back into balance by putting on the brakes. So today's subject is the brakes. How do we interfere with the flow of the air? The most common way that trumpet players interfere with the flow of the air is by engaging the glottis, the coughing valve in your throat. Throat tension can also cause problems, but the main way that we cause problems for ourselves is to engage the glottis. So if I go, so when I'm whispering, the glottis is partially engaged. And if you really pay attention when you're playing, you'll be able to, you want to be able to discern whether your throat is engaged when you're playing or not. And that's very difficult. So I use a little technique where I play, buzz on the mouthpiece, play on the trumpet, and then I release, I take the horn off my face and I listen for what's happening. I'm going to try something. I haven't tried this before, but I'm going to try it today since I don't have my horn handy. So I'm just going to buzz with the lips alone. You see what I'm doing? I'm going to do it differently. I'm going to release that valve. And this is what we use the breathing tube for. Please watch my video on the breathing tube and see if you can find some helpful things there. The main thing the breathing tube does is it gives us a sensation and a sound that go along with a neutral throat. So when we use the breathing tube, we hear more quiet air. Actually, the only thing that's causing the friction is my lips and my teeth getting in the way of the air. There's very little friction in the throat itself. Okay, so if I'm going to do that again. Now without it. So I'm trying to get the easiest flow possible. What's another way we can put on the brakes? A very insidious way that a lot of people are doing much of the time. It's very difficult to feel, which is why it can kind of creep in without our being aware of it, is we can hold back the air with the breathing muscles. So if I take a breath and release, I'm letting go of those muscles, I'm letting them relax. And that's part of blowing air through the trumpet. But when I do that, and I'm also pushing to get air going, I can develop isometric tension in my breathing system. I'm going to do that same buzzing exercise, and I hope this works for you. And this time I'm going to hold the air back with my breathing muscles. So those muscles are locked now. Instead of and just having free release of the air, now I'm locking the muscles. Now this is part of our breath control system, but it's really easy to overdo it. And then, then you're driving with your foot on the gas and your foot on the brakes at the same time. And this kind of causes a lot of stress on the vehicle. And so we want to get rid of as much of that unnecessary braking mechanism as we can. Okay, what's another way we can hold back our air? very common way. I just heard it yesterday in the trumpet class at NEC. There was one player who was getting a very kind of a muffled sound, and that's because his lips were too tight. So the harder you press your lips together, the more you put the brakes on the air. So the way we touch the air stream is super critical. And it's most trumpet players are over muscling that all the time. Now a good test is if you take your mouthpiece, if you buzz on the mouthpiece, actually let me go get my mouthpiece right now. I think that will help. I'll be right back. Okay, thanks for being patient and waiting for me. Grab my horn, grab the mouthpiece. So I'm going to buzz on the mouthpiece. I'm going to produce what I hope will be a decent sounding buzz. Now you see how I'm almost producing the same pitch with my lips as I am on the mouthpiece. James Stamp, who was a well-known teacher of the last century, noticed that his theory was, from observation, from working with a lot of really high-level players, that when you take the mouthpiece off your face, you should be buzzing an octave lower. Now that may or may not be the case for you, but see, this is the fun part. You get to experiment with this kind of stuff. If you're buzzing the same pitch, that takes an awful lot of muscular engagement, and so the tissue that's actually vibrating, the opening in your lip where the air is vibrating between your lips, it can start to squeeze that vibration and kind of shut it down a little bit. Now, you can compensate for that, and this is what many, many players are doing. They're playing with tight chops all the time. Feels strong, right? Well, it burns a lot of energy. So if I take the mouthpiece off and I have that sound, what should it sound like? If I'm letting the air move freely, it's going to be something like that. If I'm not releasing the air will pinch right off when I take the mouthpiece off my face. So this is something to experiment with. What are we looking for? Keep in mind, what do you want? An airstream that's not squeezed. And when we have the support of the mouthpiece rim and the reflection that we get from the cup, the resistance that the small throat in the mouthpiece gives us, we don't have to move very much air, and we get a lot coming back to our face. So I can do the same thing on the trumpet. That's super tight chops. So there's a whole range. You need to experiment with this in order to find exactly where you get the best vibration, the freest vibration, and the least stress on your chops. So don't unnecessarily put the brakes on the air with the chops. Don't squeeze it off. This happens to most players when we go into the upper register. So that's where you're going to notice it. Okay, what's another area? Another way we can squeeze the air or put the brakes on the air. Mouthpiece pressure. So many people are using way, way too much mouthpiece pressure, and we become accustomed to it. We don't notice it. It seems normal, seems natural, but actually, I'm going to show you. I'm going to change a note just by using mouthpiece pressure. So obviously, I'm playing sharper and flatter. I'm not changing the air, I'm not changing my lips, I'm not changing my tongue, I'm not changing my throat, I'm not changing anything. I'm blowing exactly the same way, and all I'm doing is changing the mouthpiece pressure. So we know that the mouthpiece pressure is a big part of it. The problem is, why does it go sharp when I when I push the mouthpiece into my lip a little bit more, because the physical pressure of the mouthpiece on my lip is compressing the lip tissue and kind of forcing it to make a smaller aperture, so the pitch goes up. The lip gets tighter because you're pushing the metal more deeply into it, and it's kind of squeezing the tissue together. That doesn't sound too good, does it? Well, you need a certain amount of pressure. You can't play without a certain amount of pressure, but again, it's balanced. So if you're overpressing with the mouthpiece, this is another way to block the air. Now, most people are doing these things all at the same time, and that's a huge problem. But another insidious way that I got to mention, I don't want to leave this one out because this is critical, and now that I grab my horn, I can demonstrate it for you. When you're playing, the tongue can be blocking the air, and when most people are doing rapid tonguing or multiple tonguing, the tongue is blocking the air. So if I demonstrate without the trumpet, if I just do a double tongue, many people would be going. So I'm actually holding the air back. And what I want to be doing is so the more the air is backed up, the more pressure there is, the harder we push in order to get the air past our tongue and to our lips so we can make a sound. And now we're driving with our foot heavily on the gas and on the brake at the same time. So how do we reverse the process? Practice just airstream. So you're letting the air flow as easily as possible. Now, when you're playing the trumpet, you're not going to be using that much air. It's actually very gentle. It's a very small amount of air. But it has to be supported, depending on where you're playing in the register, in order to achieve that balance so your tongue can relax. So I'm going to show you, if I just tongue, and I hope it'll sound okay, but here we go. This is what I'm doing. I'm going to take the horn off and let you see what's happening. So I've pinched the air with my lips, and I've squeezed the air with my tongue. Now I'm going to try and do it more efficiently. Now I made an airstream. That is not blocked. It's freely flowing through a small opening in my lip, and the tongue, instead of holding the air back, it's just lightly tapping. Now, most people aren't playing that way, so I want you to look at your own playing. So this technique of taking the mouthpiece off your face to find out what's going on, that only works if you're really concentrating on keeping the way you're moving the air the same, regardless of the change, keeping your embouchure the same, keeping everything in your body the same, as if you were still sustaining the note when you take the horn off. This is a technique that I invented, a long, long time ago, and it's helped me tremendously to figure out the things that we can't see in our playing, because it allows us to hear what's going on. Now, anytime you produce a consonant sound, a T, an S, sh, s, sh, C, ch, ch, k, k. These are all related consonants. G, 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 g. Any of those kinds of things are grabbing hold of the air. Instead of the air flowing over the top of your tongue completely freely, you're creating a problem for yourself. So most people are doing that, and the other parts of your body have to compensate. Your blower has to compensate, and the embouchure has to compensate the tendency to use pressure, and we're working way harder than we need to. So this is something that you need to be aware of when you're practicing, and I hope this little method helps you to learn how to gradually release the brakes. Then your body will have to learn how to ride that surfboard free. There's no brakes. You're just going. There's nothing getting in the way. I'm going to show you one more thing and then I'll let you go. A lot of people I asked folks to do this little experiment. It's very simple. The horn is an acoustical device which amplifies sound waves. And so you're getting a sound wave being produced with the airstream between your lips, and that sound wave is energizing the air in the horn, and it's bouncing back, and that sound wave is supporting your face. So I asked my students to do this just to see what will happen. So I say, take the horn, put the mouthpiece in there very lightly, so that it's seated, but you're going to be able to do this. Just take the horn right off as you're playing. Now wait a minute, shouldn't I be getting a buzz? That means I'm using way more lip engagement than I need. Now granted, I need to hold that aperture in the airstream very precisely and in a very stable manner. But I'm trying to find out how to do that without wasting a lot of energy. And so if you take the horn off your mouth, off the mouthpiece like I just did, and the buzz keeps going, you're probably creating too much lip compression, or there's too much lip tissue inside the cup, so your lips are vibrating. Let the air go past your lips. Don't put the brakes on with the lips, okay? So experiment with these things. I'm really curious. I wish I could be there with you to kind of see what happens, because this is a fun exploration. When you're having trouble, if you're having trouble with, like doing double tonguing or something, so I have my face tight. Instead of blowing the airstream, I kind of locked like this. Tight, keep those corners tight. Everything's tight. And the tongue is blocking the air. Gentle. Now, a little device that I use, kind of a body language idea, which I'll be talking about throughout this course, is that when I'm playing, the air is actually coming back in. So if you go, in other words, you should be playing in such a way that the air could go in either direction without the brakes, without anything impeding the movement of the air. It should be free flow in either direction. So if you're locked up, you got big problems. And so you need to unravel that puzzle. So go to it, go and practice and see what you can discover. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.